So welcome everyone to this episode of Right Rich's Talks. If you've been following us in the last few episodes, we've been talking about multiple streams of possibilities and the revenue streams that are attached to those multiple streams of possibilities. Now, from some of the questions that people have asked us, the idea of extrapolation has come up time and time again. So what we thought we might do is the three of us explore what do we mean by extrapolation and what are some of the tools that we use that actually help unlock some of this really powerful extrapolation.
I'm curious because, I love chatting with you guys about extrapolation. That's like one of my favorite topics with you guys. What is extrapolation to you? Because it's so different than I think most people I have this conversation with.
Well, it's interesting because I think everyone's got a slightly different view of what extrapolation is, and none of them are wrong, but some of them will actually create greater possibilities if we look at them. So Chutisa she is one of the most amazing extrapolators I've ever come across, but she's got a slightly different view to it than what I do, and because we've got slightly different views, we actually extrapolate in slightly different ways as well too, which is really awesome because we cover a whole lot of different things.
Well, extrapolation is not brainstorming. People think that extrapolation is exactly the same with brainstorming, but that's not the case. And different people do it different. For me, I am able to see different possibility by just seeing something. I could be reading a magazine, some article or something, and as soon as I read that, I can get 5 or 6 or 7 different possibilities from just that article. And I might give the same article for Steve to read, and he read it and said, oh, that's interesting.
I don't see what she sees because she is an extrapolator of magnitude. So when she sends me something, I'll often just see it for what it is, an article. And because I don't go into question about it, I don't see the other possibilities. She's since learnt to give me some sort of hint of what she's seeing, which makes it a little bit easier.
And I didn't really want to do that at the beginning because by giving someone else a hint about what I can see or what I saw, it's create limitation as well. I wanted him to be able to see from his own extrapolation about what he's seeing from that article about future possibilities or something. But I realized that everyone have different perception and different way of seeing things. And for me to be able to extrapolate so many different possibilities for that article or that thing or that object doesn't mean anyone else will see it. So I have to be willing to, okay, Steve, you can't see it. This is what I'm seeing. And then I would just explain to him what else is possible by all these ideas that I'm getting from that article. And then we extrapolate from that space again. So start off, if I have a capacity to see all these possibilities, then I have to be willing to explain and communicate with Steve so he can actually receive what I am seeing. And then from that space, we extrapolate again from what I'm seeing that he can see. He can actually say, oh, now I know what you're seeing. I used to think, why can't anyone see it? Why can't he see it? Why couldn't he see what I can see from any of these? But I realized that I had to claim on and acknowledge my capacity to see where no one else can see. And that totally changed everything, including our relationship of extrapolation.
Well, the interesting thing from my perspective is that it took me probably 2 years to realize that extrapolation doesn't mean that you actually have to do anything with it, because there's some great ideas that are great ideas and then the energy goes from them, so move on. When we used to start doing this together, I was always looking at, there's so many things here that we have to do. And I've slowly come to the realization, no, they're just extrapolations. It's not something that you actually have to do, but the ones that pop in your universe will be there a week later. They'll still be there 2 weeks later. The ones that don't pop were a great idea over a great cup of coffee, and then half an hour later, they're gone. And it took me a while to recognize that extrapolation is not about coming up with a list of to-do items. It is coming up with the energy of the possibilities, and those that actually pop for you, whatever that means to you, are the ones that just won't come out of your awareness. They will always be there.
Once you build your capacity to extrapolate, you realize there's infinite possibilities out there. There's no limitation to possibilities. So at first, Steve thought that when we extrapolate, it's something that we must do. It's just for the fun of it. So now we do extrapolation for the fun of it every week. And then we follow the energy, like we'd be in the question and say, would this be like to create for now and for now in the future? And if we get a yes, and if it's stay there in our awareness for a long time, we just put something in place to physical actualize it.
Some of my favorite questions actually in that are, you know, if I choose this, what future will it create? Or if I choose this, what will my life in the world be like in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, and 100 years? It doesn't mean you're going to be around in 100 years, but it really is about you tapping into that energy of what this is and what can it actually create in the world. You know, Chatissa, you mentioned this earlier about your ability and what you see and what you're aware of when you extrapolate. That's the gift we each have.
Absolutely.
You know, each of us has the gift to do that with different things. And that's why no two people, no matter how long you've been married and how much you have in common, you know, are going to ever be aware or see the same thing. And that's the uniqueness of us. So, you know, one of the questions that I love is, how can I use this capacity or ability or strength or whatever you want to call it to my advantage? And really open, because we tend to, when we do things really easily or things that we just like, oh yeah, that was so fast and easy, like we almost underestimate our ability around it. But to somebody else, it may not be as easy. So that could also become that multiple stream of possibility of what you can easily do. What you're aware of and what you can easily extrapolate that to someone else is valuable, you know, and would actually create greater for them or their business or their organization or whatever it is. And so it really comes back to, how do we use all of this to our advantage and have fun with it, you know?
The thing is, people extrapolate, like you said, all the time. If you look at the great chef, great cook, for them to come up with those amazing recipes, they have to extrapolate, meaning they create and generate something beyond what already exists. So extrapolation is capacity to create and generate something that hasn't existed yet. And that's one question. What can you do and what can you know that more than anyone else know? Like, everyone has their own special talent and ability that they can be so good at. So the question is, what are you really good at beyond what other people can do? So whatever that is, keep being in the question and discover it for yourself.
In fact, being in the question, and also there's a really good question you can ask as well too, which goes something like, so what is it that you do so well that you do not value, and therefore assume that others won't value it? And that question, I ran that question for 2 years until I got clarity around what it was. And once I got clarity around what it was, our business took off even greater because I used it shamelessly. So it's a great question to ask. The other part of this is that everyone extrapolates slightly differently. Chatissa extrapolates outside of this reality constantly. It's just a gift to watch.
But not just me though. Everyone extrapolate would have to come from outside this reality. Otherwise, it's called configuration.
That's what I'm good at.
If you are doing within this reality, you can get this thing that you know, this thing that you know, and this thing that you know, and put together and configure it into something new. That's configuration. But if you do extrapolation, it would have to be beyond what already known and already in this reality. So everyone can do that. Like I said about the chef cooking amazing food. To get to that recipe, to put that beautiful plating of food together, that's extrapolation beyond this reality.
One of the other great tools, Lale, and we actually used this a fair bit at the recent masterclass that we had with someone who had this multi-billion-dollar company, and he was just feeling a little bit stuck with it. And one of the things we did is that we took every potential problem that he perceived and turned it on its head and said, now, if this was an advantage, how would we deal with it? So if instead of a problem, which by definition, well, in our view anyway, is just a possibility with a judgment attached to it. So for every problem, let's look at those and turn them to our advantage, not to fix them, but to look at how we can use that to look at things very differently. And it was amazing, the stuff that came up from those discussions where we started to look at the problems. We took the judgments away from the problems. We said, now, what can we create that is different, not trying to fix anything, but is different, using that problem without any judgment attached to it as the springboard for possibilities. And he's going to be a multi-billion-dollar company fairly soon.
That's one of my favorite things, because it really is. Most of us want to focus so much on what's not working instead of like, oh, let's explore if this actually did work. What else would be available for us, you know? Every single one of us, you know, are doing whatever we're doing because there was an excitement in it too that got us intrigued and excited. And that's the thing, is how these multiple streams of possibilities literally keep opening and expanding our minds, our mindsets, and everything else of like, what else is available we've never even considered? Because there was something, you know, something. That's why you are in the field you're in. And not letting go of that curiosity, but actually igniting that curiosity in 10 different ways, 20 different ways, 100 different ways, and allowing you, your business, whether you work for someone or on your own, to actually be able to blossom and grow and expand from these possibilities instead of how everyone else is doing it, narrowing it down to one thing, and then wondering why their businesses aren't growing.
Great summary, Lale. Great summary.
Yeah. And we are continuing our conversations here about ways to add revenue streams to our businesses and to our products and services. So today we're actually going to give you guys examples of extrapolation and how you take the extrapolations and can add additional possibilities as well as revenue streams to them. So Steve and Chatissa, this is one of those fun conversations that we've had, and this could obviously take hours and hours and hours, but we're just going to do it for a few minutes.
So we can start introducing configuration into it as well. There's also valuable tools that we can use with the things that's already happening in this reality called configuration. So when there's so many things that are happening in your business, in your life already, you can configure it and create something totally different out of that as well. So these are also different tools that you can talk about, and you're so good at it, Steve. Would you like to talk about that?
Why, thank you, Chatissa. Lale. Thank you so much. Okay, so what we want to talk about now is this notion of configurating, which is essentially taking an already existing successful program or service and looking to see how you can version it and configurate it so that you can create multiple streams of possibilities from that one service or product. The only thing I would suggest to you is that you probably want to start with one that's already making you some money so that you can make even more money more quickly.
That's true, Steve, because why would you want to configure something that's
working?
Not working, it's a real dog in your business.
I mean,
so if you're going to do something well, you might as well configure something that's really working well first.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you've got a program or a service that's dying, yeah, let it die, please.
Have a nice
Now, what I want to do is to give you an example of something that we call an induction program. Now, don't go to sleep on me yet, because it's actually really interesting. So the work that we that spend a lot of our time doing is with boards and CEOs of organizations. And for those that don't know, a board is usually 4, 5, anything up to 10, 12, 15 people that are the ultimate responsibility for how that organisation creates the future. So these boards have a lot of responsibility, and some of them are really good. And then there's a lot of the ones that we work with that maybe aren't quite as good, but we work with them to get them to look at things maybe slightly differently, which is a whole lot of fun. Now, so back onto induction programs. What an induction program is, and this is one of the programs we already have that makes us a lot of money, and that is how do we help directors going onto a board actually be able to add value from the first day they join that board, rather than waiting for 12 months or 2 years until they understand a bit more about the business. So how do we induct people into a new environment, in this case a board, in a way that enables them to really add value. So the existing program we've got is this online program called Induction Insights for Directors, and it allows directors to actually take their current induction program and look at it from a different point of view. But it's an online program, and it's set up so that people can do it at their own leisure over a 2-week or a 2-month or a 6-month period, depending on what they want. So that's the basic program. Now, when we look at extrapolating and configurating, we can now look to see, well, what can we do with this already existing successful online program?
Every single board have so many board members that working in other jobs or be on other boards that also require some induction program as well. People who come on that board will introduce other boards that they are on to come to use our induction program as well. So that's already create second revenue stream of income for that induction program.
The third revenue stream from this one program is because they actually enjoy it, they invite us into their boardroom. This is actually happening right now. They invite us into their boardroom to take one of the elements of this induction program and to teach their whole board about it, but in more depth.
So this is about training, so facilitating specific topic for the board.
So that's another revenue stream that's come from this one product. The other things that we've also taken each of the elements within that product and turned them into blog articles, and those blog articles get us invited to conferences, and those conferences pay us to speak.
The cool thing is that when the board actually look at this induction program that on Kajabi online, and they want someone to come and help them set up specific induction program for their organization, then we become a consultant. We go in and work with them to develop the induction program for their board, for specific organizations. If they don't want to use us as a consultant, we also do the training program where all the different people within that organization come to be trained to create their own induction program.
We have got boards now sending us their existing induction program, and we do an audit of that induction program and come back to them with recommendations for improvement. But the reason for giving you this example, it doesn't matter what the program is. As long as this service or program that you've got is already successful, is already creating money from you, then get to work and figure out what the other 10, 12, 13, 14 different versions of this might be that you can then configure to create these multiple sources of revenue. And that's just from one program. In 6 months' time, take a second program and do the same thing. Guarantee within 12 months' time, your biggest problem could be keeping track of where all the money's going. So can you look at this through the programs or services that you're providing right now and start to look at how you can look at the constructs that we work through, which is, in this reality, it's called the market segments. Well, what if we had multiple people that we could actually develop this program up for in ways that we hadn't otherwise considered? The young uns, the old ones, the males, the females, the ones that aren't decided, the ones that are both. Right? So everything where you think that you can't do it or that you're focusing on just on the one segment, what if that wasn't true? What if there were many segments that you would focus on, and therefore you would change the language and some of the examples to actually facilitate that? What if you could do it so that you looked at different modes of delivery, face-to-face, online, streamed audio? There's all sorts of different ways, just from that one product or program or service that you're providing. And if you start doing that, then it'll start to open you up to these multiple streams of revenue that come from just this one successful product, service, or program you've got.
That was amazing, and so easy also to just, like you said, you could put any service, any product in there and be able to look at it. And it doesn't have to be difficult either. I think so many of us think, oh my God, to be able to grow the business, to be able to grow the services, somehow I have to make more money and it's not going to be easy and all that. But it really starts from what we talked about even on our last show, being able to be willing to also receive other people contributing to you by just you starting to ask the questions. So this was amazing.
The thing in all of this, and Lana, again, you summarized it very, very brilliantly, is that you can both extrapolate and also configurate, and some of them won't work, but it doesn't matter because you just try them and try them again and try them again. Don't stop. Once you've got one that works, then keep going. Because once you've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 streams of revenue, it doesn't matter if one of them stops working because you're constantly looking at the different things that you can add to your life rather than putting your life on hold, trying to find the one right one that is going to work forever and ever and ever. Even if you've spent, $15,000 or 10 or 20 or $30,000 on something and it's just not working, just say bye-bye because you will always create more. If you try and fix something, you will be stuck in the here and the now of trying to fix it without any creation going on whatsoever. And that's what destroys businesses. So on that happy note.
Yeah, on that happy note, more fun conversations to come next time on Right Riches Talks. We'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, Bye. Bye.